money to the Treasury. Here now, Republican McCotter of Michigan and a member of the House Financial Services Committee, and Democratic Congressman Frank Pallone of New Jersey joins us. He's on the House Energy and Commerce Committee. Gentlemen, good to see you both. Congressman McCotter, maybe I could begin with you. Do you think that rescinding the remaining stimulus funds and sending it back to the Treasury for deficit reduction would send an important message that our government is truly serious about cutting spending?
Well, I think the bill itself is an attempt to show that that's a symbolic act, that it's necessary to honor the will of the voters from the last election. We all know the political feasibility is not really there to do it, but I think the statement itself is there. It also helps to highlight the fact that the interest on the stimulus, which in my mind has failed and in the mind of many voters has failed, is going to start coming due, and that's going to have an economic impact. So the sooner that you can get to dealing with the consequences of the stimulus, the better off we're all going to be.
Yeah, the interest payments brings the total cost of the stimulus to $1.161 trillion. Congressman Pallone, 2 years ago, the president and his economic advisors, and I looked it up, it was Christina Romer and Jared Bernstein, as well as the vice president himself, all told Congress that if it passed the stimulus bill, unemployment would rise no higher than 8%. It's been 9 or above for a long time. 1.8 million fewer jobs than was promised. If you judge the stimulus by its own benchmarks, was it a failure, and were you in Congress, and indeed the American people, deceived?
Well, I think the stimulus was a big success. I mean, every indication is that it saved or created about 3 to 4 million jobs, that it reduced unemployment by 1.8%. But the real issue here is I just think that the House Republicans are not interested in creating jobs. You know, the Speaker this week said that if the cuts in the spending bill that we debated this week resulted in job losses, well, so be it. I don't really think they care. I mean, we spent all week on this spending bill with all the amendments that the Republicans were proposing, and they were about abortion and health care and EPA regs. And I think there's really no effort here on the part of the House Republicans to worry about job creation or the impact of these cuts on unemployment.
Congressman McCotter, what about that? I mean, we are still in a fragile part of our economic recovery. Underemployment, staggering 16.9%. Would rescinding the remaining stimulus money increase joblessness and worsen the economic picture?
No, we care very deeply about unemployment and getting people back to work. And I think that Frank is sorely mistaken in that. That's why we do not want to continue the same failed policies under the stimulus where government was somehow going to tax, borrow, and spend us back to prosperity. What we want to show is fiscal restraint and discipline and integrity in Washington so that the country knows that the people who have had to make difficult decisions in their family budget seeing it being reflected in the responsible decisions of their elected officials, so they can put a base for economic prosperity and growth underneath the nascent recovery if one exists in some districts. But if you come to Michigan and you come elsewhere, what you're going to find is that the big government 1965 industrial welfare state has not created prosperity. It has left an outstanding government bubble, the air of which is starting to come out. We're seeing that in Wisconsin. We're seeing that around the world. So when we saw many amendments put forward by members of both parties to try to be fiscally responsible, what we came up with was a bill that would help fund it and help to lead to prosperity down the road.
Congressman Pallone, I took a look at it. The remaining unspent stimulus money includes funding for, among other things, major high-speed rail, which the president said we really need so that we can catch up with Europe, Japan, and China. Here's what the Washington Post editorial said about that. Of all the reasons to build high-speed rail in the U.S., keeping up with the international Joneses may be among the worst. In fact, experience abroad has repeatedly raised questions about the cost-effectiveness of high-speed rail. In your judgment, would that just end up being another taxpayer-funded black hole?
Most of this stimulus money is already obligated, and it's for highway project, roads, mass transit, sewage treatment plants all over the country.
Some of it's for high-speed rail.
But the majority of it is for these local projects all over the country, infrastructure projects. We have in the construction trades now something like better than 20% unemployment. If it were even possible to eliminate these obligated funds, all you're going to see is less construction, less spending on sewer treatment plants all over the country, and create more unemployment. That's what we're talking about here. I don't believe that the Republicans are really serious about this in any case, though. They wouldn't have spent this entire week dealing with every other issue, like abortion, like health care, like environmental protection regulations. There's really no effort on their part to try to address jobs at all. It's really a social agenda, and that's what we dealt with every night this week.
I want to ask you both as we close this out, because we've only got a minute left. I mean, we are facing a potential government shutdown here in 12 days, and Congress has decided it's taken off the whole week. I mean, Congressman McCotter, what in the world is up with that? If there's a time for Congress to be working and working hard, isn't now the time?
Well, let me be clear. The person talking about the social issues is my colleague, Mr. Pallone, not myself. We are talking about trying to reduce big government to help lower the unemployment rate. That is the goal of what we're doing. As to whether the Senate is in session or not, you can take that up with them. But in fairness to Frank, I will say this. We were arguing many things until 5 in the morning on Saturday, and we are prepared to go back when we are needed to be back.
When are you going back?
I stand ready to work home or district.
When are you going back? When is the House back in session, Congressman McCotter?
Greg?
Oh, the House will be back in session, Frank, when the Senate decides to do something with a bill and send it over. The House Republicans have fully funded government, so
Look,
that it does
I
not
get
work
it.
out.
It's
Greg, let me say, if I could, there's plenty of other things we could be doing next week. The House Republicans are the ones that are majority and decided to take the week off. We could be creating all kinds of jobs and passing bills that relate to jobs. We don't need to go home for the week. That's just that's the fault of the House majority, the House Republicans.
You know, there are a lot of Americans. I get it that it's, the President's Day, holiday tomorrow, and that a lot of winter breaks for students and parents want to take vacation. I'm working. A lot of Americans are working, and I bet you they think Congress should be working, too.
I agree. We should go back to work.
All right. Congressman McCotter,
Well, I agree.
Congressman
We also work in
Pallone.
our districts, too.
I think there's something that needs attention in Washington, D.C. with a vote, and it's, it's a continuing resolution that's about to expire.
And we voted it in the House.
All right.
It's been passed in the House.
That's
All right,
going
gentlemen.
nowhere.
Thanks very much.
That's your problem.